and welcome back to the Building Your Brand podcast. And I have hit a big milestone today, and I wanted to share it with you. And that is that this is my 200th podcast episode. I can't quite believe it. I've been hosting this podcast for coming up to 4.5. Oh, I should have checked this before I started recording. I think it's 4.5 years. So probably coming up to 5 years next year, which is wild to me. And yeah, up to 200 episodes, which I mean, that's so cool. It is still one of the biggest loves of my business, one of my favorite things to do. And I wanted to share with you today some of the lessons that I have learned from 200 episodes. And if you've ever thought about hosting a podcast, I would love to encourage you to go for it because it has been amazing. And I know it's not going to be for everybody. It definitely has been the right move for me. And, you know, I started this podcast on a little bit of a whim back in, I think it was 2021. Yeah, it must have been back in 2021. And it's been one of the absolute best decisions that I've ever made. Like, so many incredible things have come out of this podcast. A lot of people ask me, sort of how I would quantify that or how I would measure that. And it's actually really hard to do. But I think by sharing some of the lessons of things that I've learned and also how it's helped me, it will show you what an incredible tool, what an incredible opportunity starting a podcast might be. So here is how it has helped me. Number one, I think it has massively improved my public speaking. So yes, my public speaking on stage, but I kind of mean beyond that. Like, I think my public speaking in terms of like, you know, hosting a workshop, doing a podcast episode, being a guest, you know, all the different ways that I show up and communicate. I think what I should have said is I think it's helped my communication in general. So how I articulate thoughts, how I share information. I have basically just had 200 episodes to practice and improve that. And I'm sure if I went back and listened to my first couple of episodes, I would be able to hear how far I've come, which is really cool. Maybe I will do that. I mean, I'm a bit scared to do that, but maybe I will do that. But yeah, it's like massively impacted my business in a positive way in so many other areas beyond the podcast episodes. Even like how I talk to clients, just how I think about things, you know, having to articulate thoughts, all of those things have benefited from me having a podcast. The other thing that has happened, which I think has been the most surprising thing for me, and it probably shouldn't have been, but it has been. And I never anticipated this when I started hosting the podcast, but this podcast has been the absolute best networking tool I could ever have imagined. And part of that is because I mostly interview people. So obviously this wouldn't be the same if it was exclusively solo episodes. But I have basically interviewed absolute idols of mine in my industry. I have got to know people that I never would have come across if they hadn't pitched to be on my podcast. I've built friendships and relationships with people who have been guests in a way that I think would have been just deeper than if I had dropped them a DM and we'd maybe had a chat on Instagram. Basically, getting to chat to someone for a whole hour for a podcast episode is just like a really amazing way to get to know someone, to learn about their experience and their expertise. And it has resulted in some brilliant friendships that I am so grateful for. Like the number of people who I've chatted to on the podcast and then continue to chat to, you know, on a fairly regular basis has been amazing. And to the point where, you know, there are people who I have massively looked up to in my industry who I now feel like I could drop them a DM and be like, hey, I've got this question, or hey, can I ask a favor? And we have the sort of friendship and relationship now where they would be like, yeah, sure, Liz, what do you need? And, you know, it would be reciprocal. I would help them out too. And that's just amazing, an amazing place to be. And like I said, I didn't go in this to trick people into sort of like being in my network or being my friend. Like that is something that's happened very naturally and organically. And as I said, it was something that I didn't really anticipate. But yeah, it's hugely grown my network. And I feel so lucky about the incredible people that I have been able to interview on this podcast and then to stay in touch with as a result of the podcast. So yeah, that has just been amazing. I think my next lesson is that being an interviewer is like a whole skill in itself. And I have had to learn so much about that skill. And I think I've definitely got better at it over time. I think it's up and down. Like, it's really interesting to me. Like, some people I find a lot easier to interview than others. And it's like helped me to be a better guest, I think, as well, as I reflect on and analyze, different podcast interviews and whether I found them like easy or not easy. But yeah, it's a real skill. And I think the skill is being able to intently listen to what someone's saying so that you're really taking it in and you're really acknowledging what they're saying, while also thinking a few steps ahead about what you're going to ask next. And I think this is why I like live streaming as well, because you have to do, that mental gymnastics, what am I doing right now, but also what am I going to do next, responding to people in the chat. It's kind of like similar vibe. And I would have told you, if you'd asked, that I was not good at multitasking. Like, I get sensorily overwhelmed quite a lot, and I really struggle with multitasking in my day-to-day life. But somehow in this scenario, my brain manages to do the mental gymnastics, and I think I do an okay job at, intently listening to the answer, but also thinking about the next question and where I'm going to take the episode. But yeah, it's definitely a unique skill set, and it's one that I feel really grateful that I've been able to work on and grow. Because like I said, sort of at the beginning, I think it's benefited me in lots of other areas of my business as well. So that has been interesting. I think something else that is very cool about the podcast is, well, obviously it's long form content, but it's also evergreen. Like, most of the content that I share isn't sort of time specific. The principles, the ideas, they hold up over time. Now, yeah, obviously, if I do like an interview with someone that's very specifically about, I don't know, LinkedIn or YouTube or Instagram, like a marketing platform, that is going to change over time. But with marketing and with branding and with design, like, the principles always stay the same. So actually, there is still value in all of the episodes that I've released, which I absolutely love. And something really cool happened the other day, which was that someone tagged me because they were listening to episode number 2 of the Building Your Brand podcast. So this is episode 200. They had gone back and they were listening to episode number 2 and they were finding it really valuable. And I love that. Like, I love that I have this sort of bank of content that is still valuable to people, even, 5 years on, 200 episodes in. Or, yeah, amazing. I mean, one of the challenges for me is that I am not making use of that content enough. And I am definitely going to sort of have a think about ways that I can go back and reshare some of that older content and some of the advice that was in it. The people that I spoke to, kind of remind people that those older episodes are there, because as I said, they're still super valuable. I think the other thing that I love about hosting a podcast is that I genuinely learn so much from my guests. And I've said this before, I'm a very selfish podcast host in the sense that I get people on to talk about topics that I want to learn about. So I want to learn about LinkedIn. I'm going to get someone on to chat about LinkedIn. My current obsession is YouTube. So I invited Jade onto the podcast so that I could chat to her all about YouTube and her share her advice and expertise. And there are genuinely moments from the podcast. And I think I'm going to do like a blog post or maybe even an episode about this. There are like key moments from different guests in the podcast that I think about all the time and that have genuinely impacted how I think, how I run my business. I want to really highlight those. And I feel very honored, very lucky that I get to sit and chat to these people and learn from these people. And one of my favorite compliments that I've ever received is when someone says to me, and I've mentioned this before on the podcast, when someone says to me, Liz, you asked the questions that I wanted to ask. And I'm like, yes, that is amazing. So hopefully, you are all getting to learn from these amazing guests in the same way that I am. But yeah, I mean, that has been super valuable for me as a podcast host. And then finally, it is a lot of work to host a podcast. Like, I'm not going to deny that. I spend a lot of time on this podcast. I do generally find that easy to do because I love it so much. when you really enjoy something and it doesn't feel like a chore, it's really easy to show up and do it because like there's just that motivation there. So that has definitely helped. But I think one of the biggest lessons that I have learned is so much of something being successful is just showing up. Showing up consistently and continuing with something can have such a huge impact. And, I think this is a good podcast. I'm not going to say it's the best podcast out there, but I've got 200 episodes that people can enjoy. And I have showed up for 4.5 years consistently with this project. And I feel so, so proud of that. And I can really see the momentum, the impact that has had. And yeah, it's been a slow burn. Like it took at least a year before I started to see the sort of traction and the opportunities and things happening because of the podcast. But it's been so worth it. And I love it so, so much. And yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm in this sort of period for the rest of the year where I'm doing 2 episodes a week, which is still kind of wild to me. And I don't know if I'll be able to keep it up forever, but for right now, I'm really enjoying it. But yes, those are some of the lessons that I've learned from 200 episodes of the podcast. And I guess I just want to end by saying a huge, huge thank you to all of you who listen to it, whether you just listen to a one-off episode every now and then, or whether you are a diehard fan and you listen weekly. I am so grateful. And I'm so grateful for all the times that you message me and tell me that it's helped you, or, give me a positive review or anything like that. And I guess I just want to end with a little bit of a shameless plug. If you haven't left a review for the podcast, or you have in the past and you haven't done it for a while, I would be so grateful if you would go onto Apple Podcasts and leave a review. It really does mean a lot to me. I'd love to get up to 100 reviews. It helps other people to find the podcast. I know it sounds cringe just saying it because everyone says this, but it is true. And I'm really grateful for every review that people write. So just a little plug, please leave it a review. Thank you for joining me in this journey, because it is honestly just such a joy and one of my favorite things in my business to do. And I'm excited to see where things go in 2026. I mean, that's a little way off yet, but it's going to be good. So keep following along. Come let me know, what you think on the social media. I'm at Liz M. Mosley or at Building Your Brand Podcast on Instagram. And I would love to hear, how the podcast has helped you maybe, or any suggestions or ideas, things that you think are missing and that you'd love to hear about. I'm always open to hearing your ideas as well.